Hey out there, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about the affordability crisis. Put these on here. That's right. We're going to talk about the affordability crisis. I'm going to kind of go over some notes, but basically just give you my opinion. Once again, this is not financial advice. This is just my editorial opinion about what's going on in our country as it applies to economic and basic financing. So everybody's hearing about inflation. We all know it. We all see it. We all feel it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, with rent, mortgages, the 30-year mortgage rate. It's the highest it's been since around 2008, 2009. Inflation is as worse as it's been since like 1981. So this affordability crisis, in my humble opinion, is not going away. It's going to get much, much worse before it gets better. The Consumer Sentiment Index, it is a survey that's conducted by the University of Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. And consumer sentiment is the worst it's been ever recorded on record. So this is going decades and decades back. I'm going to jump around on various topics. Like I said, I'm not really going on a preset agenda here, but I do want to keep the theme of affordability crisis. I want to briefly talk about the housing market. Now, housing is local. Timing is everything. So not all markets are going to basically go down. You hear a lot of experts coming out here pontificating, talking about, whether or not we're going to have a housing crash. I think we are, but I once again want to define from my perspective what a housing crash looks like. It is a systematic process of declining prices over a period of time, which in retrospect means, holy cow, did that really lose a lot of value? How about that? I could drop the mic and walk away from the video right now. No one's probably giving you that kind of definition of a crash as it applies to the housing market, but that's what happened back in 2008. In retrospect, the peak of that market was around July of 2006, I believe, and it really didn't bottom out until around the second or third quarter of 2012. So from the highest to its lowest point, the last housing crisis took 6 years. Now, I think this one's not going to take that long. It may take 24 to 36 months for it to actually hit the bottom. But in my humble opinion, that process has already begun in certain markets. So people out here that are just getting fixated on certain simple things like interest rates and inventory, even some of the experts, in my humble opinion, are very myopic and short-sighted. I think this is a very fluid and dynamic housing market. I think some of the consumer pressures that we're dealing with in 2022 aren't even remotely close to what we're dealing with in 2008. So to get fixated on inventory and interest rates being the two main components that's going to dictate whether or not we have a housing crash, I think is very myopic in nature. We have inflationary pressures. I talked about earlier at the beginning of this video, I've talked about the Consumer Sentiment Survey that's conducted by the University of Washington. The wealth effect. People don't feel confident about the economy. People are really concerned about inflation. People are living, 75 to 76% of people in America are living paycheck to paycheck. I had posted an article on my Facebook page a couple of weeks ago talking about almost 30% of people who have an income over $250,000 a year said that they're still living paycheck to paycheck. So when you have so much tightness in our economy and less disposable income, how many people are confident enough to say, you know what, even though mortgage rates are as high as they've been in 10 years, the economy's down, the average gas price in America is over $5, I think I'm going to go ahead and get me a 30-year mortgage. It's just not happening. I think we're going to start to see more massive layoffs the latter half of 2022. There was an article about Social Security that talked about, hey, Social Security is probably going to be okay until 2035. I think you probably can cut that number in half. I would not be surprised within the next 5 to 7 years to see the Social Security Administration come out with some type of major concessions that they're going to have to cut back in order to continue to fund the program. Stop the COLAs, which is the cost of living adjustments. They may start slightly decreasing your monthly benefits by 5%, then gradually moving it up to 10%, or pushing the eligibility for you to receive Social Security farther down the line. So it's going to be a combination of a lot of things to try to preserve that. I tell people all the time, don't count on that. You're going to have to self-source and create your own type of retirement, so to speak, or reserve the fact that you may have to just work until you can't work anymore, because it would not be financially feasible for you to take the traditional retirement path of, let's say, 62 to 65 years of age. I'm sitting here looking at some of my notes. I'm going to briefly talk about consumer debt. You guys know what's going on with that. We're at an all-time high. Credit card debt. The Fed's going to continue to raise interest rate in the light of inflation going up. So that debt, paying that debt back, is going to become more expensive. Student loan debt. Yeah, there was this massive student loan debt consolidation that the Biden administration has recently done within the last 30 days. But once again, in my humble opinion, I do not think the administration is just going to totally erase student loan debt. It is a massive source of revenue, tax revenue, for the federal government. That bubble is almost $2 trillion, and you almost have to be a paraplegic, in order for you to get that thing discharged. So there's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide when it comes to student loan debt. So I don't see them letting the average American off the hook for something like that. Let me see here. What else do we have here? So it's just a really, really sad situation. I tell people all the time, I'm a guy, for those who know me on a personal level, I'm a guy who lives well below his means. I'm not a pretentious person at all. I have a Honda CRV. Honda CRV. It's a 2012, and I've got, almost 130,000 miles on that thing. Like, I don't care. I really don't. And I just don't care. That stuff doesn't mean anything to me. I think it's important to live below your means. Now, unfortunately, it's going to be too late for a lot of people. I think the middle class is being culled. It's being eradicated. And I think you can look back on this, and we're going to say it probably was by design. As you look at even something as fast food, we're 2 years into this health crisis, and guess what? Either because of supply chain shortage issues or lack of workers, you can't get enough people in some of these places to even reopen the dining room area. That's been gone. Automation will replace a lot of service jobs. So that's going to require a lot of people to get new skills, to get updated on technology, and to evolve into this new economy that's basically going to be feast or famine. Once again, I think the middle class is systematically being destroyed. It is a very sad day in this country that, the average income doesn't stretch that far. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. They're not. So some of the housing areas that have a huge price gap in terms of over a period of time, the housing market has gone up in value, and the wages haven't kept up, like in my area, Seattle. Those areas are poised to have some major pullbacks if a real estate, quote unquote, crash happens. I think it can be much more significant what people think. If you're asking me for my personal opinion, I'm going to say conservatively over a period of time, as I've defined what a crash looks like. I can think on the low end as low as 20, and on the high end anywhere from, I'm going to say 35 to 40%, based on where the values are right now. Anyone probably that has purchased within the last year or so, if they didn't really get a good solid area, might be looking at being upside down with their home by the end of this year. And some of the more frothy markets like Seattle, Boise, Idaho, Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina. There's Tampa has a crap load of pre-foreclosures. That's another thing that's going to further exacerbate the housing market. Is the foreclosures. They're going to slowly start to tick up. People who did lock in on really good historic 30-year mortgage rates under 3%, that's going to be a moot point if you lose your job. Eventually, you're not going to be able to afford your mortgage. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people who are advocates of canceling rent and, demonizing landlords and things of this nature. Capitalism always fills a void, ladies and gentlemen. It always does. So what's happening now, these moratoriums have expired. The CARES Act have expired. These landlords have basically been taking it in the proverbial gut for over 24 months, and now they are fighting back with a vengeance. You're seeing certain markets where the prevailing market rate for rent is like $2,000, and the landlord said, hey, buddy, it's $4,000. Take it or leave it. I got 10 other applicants that can pay that price and come up with a multiple security deposit down to move in. So that's what's happening, right? And it's unfortunate because the analogy I'd like to leave you with finally at the end of this video is that a lot of times your problem starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? You've been living paycheck to paycheck for decades. You've been pushing things off, going on vacations, doing all of these superficial things, not having an emergency fund. And now we get to 11:58 p.m. and now there's a crisis because everything that you've neglected from 6 o'clock in the morning has come home to roost. And now it's 11:58 and you want to unravel all of that time that you've let go by through procrastination, and you want this thing resolved before the next day. And unfortunately, in a sad state of affairs for a lot of people in this country, it's just too late. They're running out of time. I tell people all the time, if you're in a position, please pay your debt. Keep your credit score up. Keep your debt down. If you're enjoying this kind of content, please help my channel grow. Please comment, share, because you know I care. Once again, please comment, share, because you know I care. This was the Kevin Strong Show. This video was about the affordability crisis. So please drop a comment. I'd like to hear what you think or what you do agree with and what you don't agree with regarding the content of this video. And I'll see you in the next one.